Hey, this is Scott Weinberg. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to the Horror Show podcast. We're going to do a quick first half of 2015 horror preview. I'm using U.S. release dates. Sorry for that to my friends in the U.K., but I gotta do it somehow. So far in January, we've gotten The Woman in Black 2, which I thought was pretty decent, and Rec for Apocalypse, which I thought was fun, but kind of missed the first two. We also got over here a really cool indie horror film called Dark Summer, which is about a guy who gets into some trouble on the internet after stalking a girl, which one should not do. The Atticus Institute is a cool fake documentary, basically as if it was an old lost documentary about a group of parapsychologists who stumble across a woman who not only has extrasensory powers, but has powers well beyond that, and they're very dark and dangerous.
Can you please stop that,
Can you
Judith?
please stop that, please?
We'd really like to continue.
Surprisingly good movie. It's directed by the guy who wrote Buried, Chris Farling. So check that one out, Atticus Institute. And those reviews are all up at the Horror Show. Pretty much everything we cover here either has been reviewed or will be reviewed at the Horror Show. On the 23rd is a really cool dark thriller from the Timo brothers, the guys who did Macabre and the Safe Haven segment of VHS 2, called Killers. It reminded me in a lot of ways I Saw the Devil, great Korean film from several years ago, and it's about a journalist and a psycho who kind of go head-to-head in a game of wits. Very dark, very good. January 30th, have not seen it yet, but Fear Clinic, from our old friend Robert Hall, who is a special effects master. Again, I haven't seen this one, but it's based on Robert's series from several years ago, and it stars Robert Englund, and so that's on the 30th.
The chamber here animates your phobias in the form of hallucinations. Total immersive exposure therapy. Something went wrong. What's happening here simply isn't possible. Damn, that is creepy.
On the 30th as well is a comedy horror I have seen called Suburban Gothic from Richard Bates, who is the writer-director of a very cool film called Excision. Suburban Gothic is about a guy who goes to live with his parents unhappily, and then discovers that there's something supernatural afoot in the house, teams up with a very cool, wise-ass bartender, played by Kat Dennings, and they kind of dig into the history of who's haunting whom.
So you still believe in all the paranormal stuff?
I've experienced it firsthand. I used to see ghosts regularly, and then just suddenly it stopped.
Sounds like you have an amazing gift. Why don't you pursue a career in the paranormal?
Really have to wear this?
Shh, keep your voice down. You're gonna wake up my dad.
It's funnier than it is scary, but I liked it very much. It's dry and weird. So there's January. In February, I guess I should mention the long-delayed Seventh Son, starring Jeff Bridges. It's kind of a wizards and monsters period piece, like the old Season of the Witch that Nicolas Cage did a couple years ago. Looks a little bit like that.
I've been searching for you, Mr. Ward.
But this thing's been pushed back constantly, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it looks... let's move on. Seventh Son, February 6th here in the States. On the 13th, here we get a very cool Australian zombie comedy called Wormwood. Keep an eye out for that one. It is a crazy, over-the-top zombie massacre. Not the kind of zombie film that is interested in the introspection of what happens to humans upon the corruption of society. No, this is tongue-in-cheek, very gory, very crazy road movie, action movie. I liked Wormwood a lot when it played here in Fantastic Fest in Austin. Fun movie. Also on the 13th is another film that I believe the UK got a while ago, but it's a vampire comedy called What We Do in the Shadows.
Hello, ladies.
When you get the 4 vampires in a flat, obviously there's going to be a lot of tension.
We'll do my dishes!
This is my torture chamber.
Great orgies, 20, 30 women.
He could hypnotize crowds of people.
The neighbors can see you flying around. You want to draw attention to this house, hmm?
Got a whole documentary crew following you around.
If you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, it is brilliantly funny. On 2/20, we finally get a film that played at UK Fright Fest last year very well, Adam Green's Digging Up the Marrow, which is another faux documentary about the filmmaker, Adam himself, and some of his colleagues digging into an obsessed fan played by Ray Wise. And that's a really interesting film, and I know it played really well at Fright Fest. So, late February, we get Out of the Dark, which I know nothing about, except that it stars Julia Stiles and Stephen Ray, two actors I like very much.
This is your new home.
It's a castle.
It is a castle here. Hold it there.
500 years ago, the conquistadors came here looking for silver and burned all the children of this village alive.
Out of the Dark was written by the brothers who wrote Carriers and The Last Days. The Carriers I like very much, and The Last Days came out last year, and I like those guys. So I'm going to keep an eye out for Out of the Dark on the 27th. And also presently scheduled for late February is one called The Lazarus Effect, which you may have seen some trailers for.
This whole process started with the Lazarus serum. The goal here is simple, to bring someone back from the dead.
Medical students discover a cure for death and, of course, really live to regret it, and probably for not very long. What makes this one a little bit more interesting is a very good cast. Olivia Wilde, Mark Duplass, Donald Glover are all in The Lazarus Effect. So let's bring on late February. On March 10th, here in the States, we get Wolf Cop, which I think is adorable. It's gross and bloody and really raunchy, but I believe it's exactly the kind of 80s homage that I think people who were around in the 80s will appreciate. Wolf Cop feels like it fell out of 1988 in a very good way.
Is it almost time?
Big teeth you have. That's not all.
Wolf Cop, you know if you want to see it or not. Not for kids. Then on the 13th, we have Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. I'm a fan of these films. To be honest, I couldn't disseminate 2 from 3 from 4 at this point, looking back. But I know that when another one pops up, I generally have a good time watching them. It was bumped back a little bit from October. Now it's coming out in March. And that's Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. Then on 3/20, similar to Wolf Cop, but a lot broader and a lot goofier, and it's called Zombievers. It is about, yes, zombie beavers.
What is that? Looks like a beaver dam. Let's go take a look. What was that? Someone in there? There's a beaver in the bathroom! Kill it!
We cannot turn against each other right now. That is exactly what the beavers would want. Oh, there's no way I'm drunk enough for this.
Very broad and silly. Most of it really works well. You know, the jury's still out on this one, but I dug Zombievers. I thought it was fun. One film that you'll be getting very soon, I believe even before us perhaps, is called It Follows. We're getting that on March 27th here. See this movie. This is a great horror film, a straight-faced, serious, quietly insidious horror film.
You're not gonna believe me, and I need you to remember what I'm saying. This thing, it's gonna follow you. Somebody gave it to me, and I passed it to you.
It's about an entity that follows its victims, will not stop following its victims. All you can do is just keep getting away from it. And it's transmitted through sexual contact.
Is something wrong with me?
It's gonna be here sooner or later.
You can read our review at the site. It's a very cool horror film, and I am really looking forward to seeing it again, and you will love it. Then in June, we just jump ahead to June, because I didn't catch anything in May. I'm sure we'll have more horror movies in April and May than we already have at this point. But in June, we have not only Insidious Chapter 3, the directorial debut of the very cool horror writer Leigh Whannell, who is, of course, the co-creator of Insidious and Saw, and other cool things, but now he gets to direct Insidious 3. I liked 1 and 2, as many horror fans did, so kudos to Leigh. Hope this one's fun. And I know it doesn't fully count as horror, but I'm sorry, any movie in which dinosaurs eat people is at least partially a horror film. So, on June 12th, we will close our half-year preview. I'm very excited to see what comes out of Jurassic World. To me, it doesn't have to change the world to just be a fun monster movie. And yes, dinosaurs are monsters. want to hear anything about that. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any suggestions on horror films for us to check out that we didn't cover here, you can hit us up on Twitter at The Horror Show TV, or me personally at Scott E. Weinberg. Thanks so much, and have a good night.